Hello dear tea friends from around the world, and welcome to a new class with me, Stéphane Herler, from the Tea Masters blog and the tea-masters.com boutique. Today we are doing the second part of our class on sheng Puerh. If you have not seen the first part, please, I recommend that you first watch it. Otherwise, it's okay. Also, this actually is quite independent from the first. In the last week, we were talking about the history of Puerh, looking at a definition, what is Puerh in theory, and today we are going to the practice. How are we going to brew our Puerh from the leaves to the actual brew? So this is what I'm going to demonstrate today. Thank you very much for joining and giving me a thumbs up, like always. And if you have any questions, I will answer them live now on my Facebook class after the class, and this is only for people who come and are part of the show live. If you have questions on YouTube where I'm not live, then you may have to write them down in the comment section, and I'll try to do my best to answer them. So to brew our Puerh, we have two possibilities. Either we can take a Gaiwan or we can take an Sheng teapot. If you are in the testing mode, like I've demonstrated a few weeks ago, to test your tea like Bugatti on the highway, then I recommend for the first time to use a Gaiwan. If you want to test it very strongly, even more, we can use a teapot, especially if it's a teapot that you know is very well dedicated for this type of tea. So this is an Sheng shaping, very classic, very smooth skin. It makes a really very good cup of Puerh, and that's why I want to use this one for a change, because I'm using Gaiwan many times in previous videos. It's a bit less the case that I'm using an Sheng, and we are still actually in this winter mode. The reason I wanted to do this classes about Puerh is that it's a tea that you are drinking when it's still very cold outside, when you need a tea to warm you up, and a teapot made of clay helps to brew the tea at a higher temperature than porcelain. In porcelain, the temperature drops down quite quickly, but the advantage of clay is that it keeps the temperature at a higher level, and therefore it brews more aromas out of the leaves, and also you are getting a warmer brew. So these are the reasons why in this class I would like to take this Zesha teapot to brew. So the tea that I had in mind is my Yiwu Spring 2003. It's a tea that I know very well, so I've brewed it also in Gaiwan many times. It's also now a tea that is suitable for brewing in Zesha, because it's already now 19 years old, almost 20, so it is really slowly becoming an aged Puerh. We can also first learn to look at the leaves. You see, this is now maybe only a part of the cake, maybe 1/4, but we see that the leaves are very distinct. There is not a big difference between the back side and the front side. This would be an indication that if the front side looks much more beautiful with more buds than the back side, then this is usually the case with the more commercial Puerhs, where they want to show off, where they want to trick you into believing that they are using a lot of high-grade material for the front, and that you think that you get a lot of these buds everywhere in the Puerh cake. But actually, when you look in the in the side or behind, you see that there are much fewer buds than on the front. So this is not a good sign. It's a sign of cheap marketing, and you have to be aware of such tricks. More honest or straightforward cakes will not try to deceive you with this. So what else can we see? The leaves are quite harmonious. They are not broken. We can see some larger leaves. Of course, very large leaves can also be done by waiting for a certain time before you harvest them. What another good indication is to see that the leaves reflect kind of a shine. This is also a good sign. Then finally you can smell them. Here I have Baoba 8582 from 88. Compared it with this one from 2003. It's also interesting to see how this one looks darker in many respects. You can see, but that in terms of leaf quality, actually we are. It looks actually very pretty similar. Probably also because Monghai had access of a lot of Yiwu material. So it's interesting to compare these two. But well, yeah. Also compare the smell. Yeah, definitely it still smells younger compared. And now to brew, we need to flake it. To flake this cake, and the way to do it, I'm only using my hands. I'm not going to use any knives. This is an advantage of using a Puerh that is hand pressed, not machine pressed, so the press is not too tight, and it is actually possible to flake it with bare hands. As you can see, we are going to flake very slowly, because when you are brewing, you are not in a hurry. If you are in a hurry, then you are not going to brew well. So it's also a time of being calm. It's almost like playing Jenga, where you try to move one block of wood without making the tower fall down. You have to be careful to flake the leaves without breaking them. Okay, now I'm using both hands, sometimes going back and forth, trying to loosen them little by little, and then they come off. You see, I'm again, yeah. Great, they are coming off very gently. And the good thing with Puerh, actually, we don't need so many leaves, because Puerh is such a powerful tea with more concentration of aromas than oolongs, for instance. So my take is that we don't need too many leaves, but it's important to flake them and not put a whole piece, so that the leaves brew the aromas at the same time. Okay, let's take a few more leaves. Again, gently trying to find those that are a bit that are a bit loose, and then exerting some pressure on them or moving them a little bit. Oh, almost. Here is another leaf that is easy to move. Okay, I think that's enough. Voila. And let's put this one here. Oh, actually, to avoid water spilling on them, I put them away. And now we have our dry leaves. We can continue to make sure that they are well flaked by continuing to go through them. If there are a bit larger chunks, continue to gently to massage them and separate the leaves as much as you can. Of course, this means you have clean hands. Okay, let's start to preheat the water. And so here it's also interesting to see we have different types of leaves. Here we have a bud, here we have a twig, we have some larger leaves with large buds. We don't have so many huangpian, these older leaves. So this is a cake of where the high quality, where there is a high percentage of buds. Okay. Again, in winter we have to preheat first the outside of the teapot, then the inside. Now we practice our pouring and get the leaves into the teapot with the hand. Now carefully, you can smell them, but the best is not to move the teapot at this stage in order to leave this harmonious way that the leaves have fallen into the teapot intact, and this will help to brew. Now, because Puerh that we are brewing, it was compressed into a cake shape. This compression, now we need to uncompress the leaves, and therefore we can use a bit a stronger Puerh than we would with other teas that are in loose form. high or low, rather low, so that the water doesn't have so much time to decrease in temperature. And as said, we'll take a little bit more strength. However, no need to pour on top. We did not use so many leaves also because it's rather high quality puer with lots of aftertaste, and to emphasize the aftertaste, a long brew is going to help get these strong deeper aromas from the leaves, and but since we don't want too many of them, otherwise the tea would be too strong, therefore it's better not to use too many leaves in the teapot. Several ways to make sure when your tea is ready. You can watch the level of the water at the spout, and you can also try to smell the brew for sweetness, and yeah, for a moment when it's strong enough. If you're not sure, you can start by pouring a little bit. If the color of the brew is still a bit light, you may pour more slowly. This is what I'm doing. So again we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1 in order to get a very even brew in the cups. And as you can see, the color is pretty much the same in the 3 cups. Well, 4 cups. Voilà. Have a quick look. The tea is taking like 40% of the volume in the teapot. That's already enough to make a very nice brew. Still a bit warm. You can see the lovely transparent orange and shiny color. And it has lots of sweetness, very good harmony, barely any bitterness. Especially if you are used to drinking puer, you will find this is really very, very sweet. And it has this very natural, woody, earthy, camphor, menthol smells. And it feels so pure. This is really incredible. Excellent tea. So that was quite easy, as you can see. The fact that we were flaking so carefully the leaves prevented lots of broken leaves, and the fewer breakings, the less possibility for astringency to come out. A whole leaf is always going to be more sweet, sweeter than broken leaves. That's why the most astringent teas are those that are in the shape of tea bags, where they're really broken into very small pieces. But for these teas, you almost necessarily need some sugar or milk, because otherwise it's the taste is too astringent and bitter. But whole leaves really is what preserves the sweetness. Therefore, really, flaking is so important. Flaking carefully. You would say, oh, well, if we don't flake, we are going to break the leaves even less. But the problem is, if you don't flake, if you just take one big chunk of pu'er and you put it in your teapot and you wait for the brew, for the hot water to flake the leaves in the water, then what will happen is the leaves on the outside of your chunk are going to be the first to brew the aromas, and then only later on, once they get detached from the chunk, are the leaves inside the chunk going to start to release their aromas, and therefore the aromas in the cup will be uneven. You will have the first aromas of the inside leaves with all the aromas from the leaves on the outside. So this will create a very unbalanced brew, which will not feel as pure and nice as this one. Of course, sometimes the leaves can be so pressed so hard that you don't have so much choice. Otherwise, it's using a knife, but can be dangerous to your hands. It happened to me that with very hard tours, especially, I hurt my hands like this. But therefore, it's better to choose hand-pressed cakes that are easier to flake. Very, very nice and sweet. Also a bit leathery scent. And of course, we can brew this tea again and again, many times. So let's do a second brew, and then I will release you and maybe ask for your questions. Very important also, the water must be very must be really boiling. Better always to use top quality water. Water really has an impact on tea. This is maybe a bit less the case for Pu'er. Pu'er being so strong in aromas is a bit more forgiving for heavier types of water, but still, if you can find and use a better water with not too many minerals content in the water, it's better to choose a lighter one. This will give more space for the aromas in the tea to express themselves instead of tasting the water. The general rule is, if the water is tastes sweet and nice on its own, then it's going to be suitable for your tea. For the second brew, I can be very slow and careful. Again, at this time, still no need to pour water on top of the teapot. If you waited a long time between two brews, you may preheat your teacups again, or if it's very cold, this can be actually quite useful to keep the brew at a higher temperature. This will make it more fragrant. But if it's not so cold, then and you did not wait so long, then the cups won't be too cold in the meantime. Okay. Second brew doesn't have to be too long. Of course, exactly how strong you want your pour is really a matter of personal taste. Being a fan of all types of teas, from green tea, very light, to high mountain oolongs or hongshui oolongs, more stronger roasted oolongs. I'm not drinking my pours too strongly, but you can if you want. See, again, the brew is very transparent and shiny and very even in each cup. And again, a lot of purity, a lot of sweetness. And the smell inside the teapot is really very, very powerful. These leaves still have a lot of aromas to give. So I'm going to close the lid to keep the leaves as warm as possible inside the teapot. This will also help to get more out of the leaves for the next brew. Okay, I think this is it for today. I showed you very simply a few tricks on how to brew sheng pu'er with an I Ching teapot. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week. We're going to discuss, it will be spring, and therefore we're going to talk about the spring tea, which is a green tea from Sanxia, a Biluchun, that I've already selected. It was harvested on March 13th, and it's already in my store. You can check it out, and I will give you more further information about it next week. Thank you very much for watching. See you. Bye bye.